Outside of the Hall of Fame game, we got our first preseason action this past weekend. What a doozy it was! It was great to watch, multiple games of football. Even though it was preseason action, it was cool to see some of the highlights. And I'm going to toss this question to you, Mark. Should there be a asterisk or a special place in Canton dedicated to the 70-yard field goal that was booted by Jaguars kicker Cam Little?
Dude.
That would shatter the record if it counted. Obviously, it's not a regular season game, but 70 yards. That was impressive.
Well, he didn't do it in Denver either. I think that's what made it more impressive to me is, you think the record's going to be broken when they go to Mexico City and do the game there.
Humidity
but he did it in the steamy humidity of Jacksonville. This kid's got a leg on him, and it really.
I wonder what the analytics say, because he didn't just barely hit it either.
Oh, he made it.
It looked like he would have made it from like 75.
It's a weapon. And listen, Jacksonville's we're about to talk about here today. They need weapons. And so I think it's certainly one of those things where you say to yourself, listen, it's preseason, but I think we're all eager to see if and when Jacksonville is confident enough to say we're going for it here in a regular season game to show that this is real. Because remember, as cool as that is, if you miss it, think about where you're giving the team the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
in a normal game, but they also were, I think it was right at the end of the half, so they didn't have to worry about it.
Yes. So maybe it's going to be a lot of that type of situation that we'll see them bring it out. But also, if Jacksonville's playing a game against a Buffalo, a Baltimore, a Cincinnati, a Kansas City, where you need to score points, then it's a weapon. It was a wild video, because all of a sudden you're just like, wait, what happened in Jacksonville?
Yeah, it was crazy. And it would just be hilarious if, like, the next wave of kickers, if he's like the Patrick Mahomes coming in after Tom Brady, if Cam Little's, coming in after the Justin Tuckers and just being automatic from 60, like it used to be and still is for most kickers. Ooh, I don't know. Can we trust him with like a 58? I don't know. If this guy, you can say, 60, he's automatic from 60. That's easy.
Yeah, that's a wild
thing we've never encountered before.
Yeah, my guy's not even good from 50. Cairo Santos, he's like a 49 and under. He's elite, and then 50 and over, it's absolute hit or miss.
Which also goes to show how difficult being an NFL kicker really is, because if he's a professional kicker that has held a job for several years,
and he's good, and he's from 30 to 49, he's fantastic. He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, it's hard to be consistently good from beyond 50, even at the height. That's why guys like a Tucker, or I would say Chris Boswell now, like those are few and far between in the league. Harrison Butker, like these guys are showing why they matter in the league, and kicking is still very much a big part of it. We'll get to some news before we get to our divisional previews. This week we are talking about the NFC and AFC South, two divisions that have certainly been among the dregs of the league for the last decade plus, but have a lot of intriguing upside as we get into this kind of new wave of head coaches and quarterbacks. So excited to talk through these two divisions. But first, let's talk about some news from the preseason action. Unfortunately, Rashawn Slater, that's the big ticket news that's come out over the last week, out for the season. So the big time left tackle, they were going to have their bookends set for the next decade, were the LA Chargers. Now without their left tackle in Rashawn Slater, going to move Joe Alt to the left side now to protect the blind side of Justin Herbert. But brutal news there coming out of LA ahead of a season where you thought they had that, implementation of the Jim Harbaugh offense last year, wanted to run the football more, got a lot of efficient play out of Justin Herbert, taking the next step this year. And now they're going to have to do it without their all-pro left tackle. a big blow to the run game and also obviously this passing game too.
It's a giant blow. I mean, it's part of the core of their team. It'd be like the Bengals losing a Higgins or a Chase, like one of the two. It's like, no, this is the core of our football team is built around this offensive line. I still think it's an above average offensive line. They added Mekhi Becton as well in the offseason. But, when you
imagine
look
if they didn't have Joe Alt,
I
a guy
know
that they could move over to the left.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, it also just, it makes everything thinner, right? Like it just adds that extra level. If Alt tweaks an ankle week 6, and now he's got to miss a week or two, there could be a stretch of this season where the Chargers have a below average offensive line. And from everything I've heard too, when you pop your patella tendon, it's one of those where it's like guys are never the same. Like the knee is never the same. It's not an ACL. You know what I mean? It's a different type of injury. And so, listen, he's young. He's already missed a season because of an injury. This will be number 2 because of an injury. He got paid, so you feel good for the player, at least that There's some security. You feel terrible for the organization, and because this is the worst case scenario for them. Now they have all this money tied up in a guy who's not going to play this year and may not ever be the same as he was when you paid him, what he projected to be. So big injury. And to me, it's the biggest injury so far of looking at the start of the season. Besides the guys who were still waiting for them to come back from injuries last year, the Tank Dells of the world, things like that. This is as far as a new injury goes, there's not been one bigger, and hopefully, knock on wood, there won't be one bigger going into the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the glass half full take overall on the landscape is that we haven't had too much big injury news to deal with so far through camp and this first week plus of the preseason. But then again, Rashawn Slater is one of the bigger names in offensive line play in one of the biggest markets out there in the NFL too. So brutal blow for the Chargers for Rashawn Slater, just hoping for a quick recovery and able to get back to, what he was, as you mentioned, for the 2026 season, but they'll have to find a way to work without him here in 2025. Landon Dickerson, another potential blow early in the week where we thought maybe Landon Dickerson, the guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, was going to be out for an extended period of time, but thankfully he's able to have a surgical procedure and they expect him to actually be back now the first week of the season. So avoiding a big blow there to that offensive line, which of course is the bread and butter of the Philadelphia Eagles, as it was the LA Chargers as well. Jordan Love also undergoing a procedure. Is it on his hand, Mark? Do you remember?
He tore a ligament in his thumb, apparently.
There you go.
There's a thumb injury for Jordan Love. And for Dickerson, listen, he still may not be 100% for week 1 and 2. They may decide to hold him and give him time to get fully healthy. But absolutely, that would have been equally as big of a blow to a team, as the Rashawn Slater one. Because, again, the offensive line is the identity of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Dickerson is at the heart of that. For Jordan Love, it's a bummer because there were some nice moments from Jordan Love in that opening preseason game. Overall, the Packers, I mean, it was an ugly loss, but again, it's preseason week 1. And for him now to say, hey, listen, you're dealing with wide receivers who are injured, wide receivers who aren't playing, and wide receivers who you don't have a great rapport with because some guys have just missed so much time. That's got to give Packers fans a little bit of pause. But again, it's a great coaching staff. It's a great head coach. It's a great organization. I don't think this is going to be something that derails them. Maybe will Green Bay start a little slower than maybe they were projected to because of this? Maybe. But does it derail the Packers from contending in the NFC North? Absolutely not.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they'll be fine and they'll be able to work around it. But the Jaden Reed news, like the question marks around this receiving core, I agree. Like they're going to have to get some clarity pretty soon on who they're going to be working with because, this is a big year for Jordan Love and the Packers, really, because they could slowly find themselves falling behind in the dust of the Detroit Lions. We'll see what your Bears do this year. But the Packers need to stay afloat because it does feel like they're almost wading in water right now and trying. And they're consistent, they're stable, they're good. But are they going to elevate now? It's year 3 with Jordan Love officially. So this is the time for them to be able to do that. And missing valuable reps in the preseason doesn't help. Brutal blow for Vikings wide receiver Rondale Moore.
Yeah, that sucks.
Who, for those who remember, a few years ago was a really big name in like fantasy football circles for the Atlanta Falcons. Really shifty, good wide receiver out of the slot. And he was 20 years old when he came into the league. He's still just 24 years old right now. But for the second consecutive season, suffers a season-ending injury before the season even begins. Yeah. So I believe that's 2.5 full years without NFL play for this young 24-year-old promising wide receiver for the Vikings. Now, obviously, the Vikings have plenty of depth, and they've got their top 2, but no Jordan Addison for extended period of time to begin the season. So they probably were leaning on Rondale Moore to take that wide receiver 2 space for the beginning parts of the year. Now they're going to have to turn to the likes of other guys in that room. So really tough for him. Just wanted to note that. Obviously, like, he's not a huge name in the league or anything like that, and the Vikings will probably be okay. But really sucks for Rondale Moore. Moving forward.
I'll just say again, it just speaks to, with the Vikings and the Packers, maybe now because of injuries getting off to slower starts.
Yeah,
how imperative it is for Chicago and Detroit to capitalize on that, right? Because because of you don't have a wide receiver after Justin Jefferson, and because your quarterback is shaky with his wide receivers and getting himself healthy in weeks 1 through 3, you have an opportunity to create some space early in that division if you're Detroit and Chicago. And we'll keep our eyes on it, especially when we break down the North coming up in a couple weeks.
Yep, absolutely. And final bit of news before we get to our previews. Standout all-pro defensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cam Hayward, is holding in. He is not – he's participating in practice at a limited extent, but he's there, so he's holding in. But he is not – participating in team drills or anything like that currently, as he waits to have his contract, quote unquote, addressed, as he puts it, which is fair. And I will say, a lot of people may remember he got an extension last offseason ahead of the 2024 season. And so, he was locked up for 2 years with a third year tacked on there as well. But at the same time, and I think, it makes sense from what Cam's perspective is, he was coming off of an injured year in 2023. He was entering the season, in his mid-30s, and rightfully so. The team was like, hey, man, like, this is the time where defensive linemen completely fall off. You're coming off an injury. We don't know what to expect. And so they found a deal that seemed commensurate given those facts. But now Cam is saying, okay, I came back. I had an all-pro year. I was healthy all year.
Yeah.
And honestly, he was like a top 5 defensive lineman last season.
He's still that guy.
Like,
yeah.
He was really that good.
Guy.
So he's like, I need to be paid what I'm worth. And probably from his perspective too, he's not going to have many more chances to, get paid a considerable amount. And right now he's being paid, 22nd amongst, defensive tackles in the league. So he wants his contract addressed, probably wants more just guarantees for this year. And I'm confident it's going to be handled. Yeah, I'm confident it's going to be handled. I just can't envision, knowing the Steelers and especially knowing Cam, this guy doesn't want to go play for someone else.
No.
Now, he said he's willing to not play games. And I believe he said that in the past, and they've gotten deals done. So look, I'll withhold, judgment or worry until we get, a week out from the season. Yeah. But I do think it's going to get handled. But you're just I don't like the noise. That's for sure. I don't like
Sure.
the fact that
Well,
this is
Dan, I think part of this, I know this is going to sound maybe crazy, but let me draw the lines. I think part of this is all Aaron Rodgers too. The players are not dumb. Watt and Hayward looking at this and going, wait a minute. You're all in. Like, this is the all in year, right? There's no plan beyond this year, right? This is the all in year. So you need me. You need Watt. You need Cam Hayward. And so I think they're pushing it a little bit. I think their agents are smart. I think they are smart. And they go, listen, you need us, go all in with us. And we're willing to say, if it blows up and we stink or whatever, then we'll make the adjustments and you guys might, go into the tank or whatever it might be. But this is, I think part of it is when you sign Aaron Rodgers and you don't have a plan at quarterback, you're going all in. Players are going to try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, the cards are on the table. And so they're saying, we'll put ours on the table too.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. But I do expect deals to get done. And Cam Hayward is probably the top guy in this team that doesn't need preseason reps. So I'm not too concerned about, any missed time there. But yeah, you certainly want to have him back and ready to go for week 1 of the regular season. All right, let's get into our previews, Mark. We'll start with the NFC South. I will let you kick us off with the team.
All right, the NFC South. Well, there's only one team to start with. That's the team that's going to go for a 5th straight division title, the Tampa Bay Bucks. Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. I'll never forget 2 years ago at this time, I was writing the Bucks obituary. Remember, I said they should go all in on the tank. And they should, they should go all in on getting a quarterback number 1 overall and move on and say this is just fire Todd Bowles, win 2 games, and then reset. And I could have been proven more wrong. And so much of it is Baker Mayfield. Dan, over the last 2 years, Baker again is going to year 8, which is crazy. Baker Mayfield going to year 8. We're getting old.
Yeah, that is wild to think about.
2 years in Tampa, 67% completion percentage, 8,544 yards, 69 touchdown passes. That's most in the NFL over the last 2 years. Only 26 interceptions. So a 3-to-1 basically touchdown interception ratio. And he's rushed for over 215 yards on average a season with 2 touchdowns. So he had that one infamous run in Tampa not long ago. I think it was last year, kind of, fired up the boys. This is a team that has, to me, they feel like the easiest lock to win their division, maybe beyond Buffalo. Like this just feels like they're not going anywhere. I know they're on the 3rd offensive coordinator for Baker in 3 years. But Baker has shown what he's done really well. And any offensive coordinator is going to be smart enough to go in there, work with Baker, and build an offense that works. They still have Mike Evans. They will get Chris Godwin back at some point in time. He's probably going to start the year on the pup. You draft Emeka Egbuka, the rookie wide receiver, round 1 out of Ohio State. That kid is 6'1", 205. He is the rookie Chris Godwin. So when you have all 3 of those wide receiver weapons, plus a really, really above average tight end in Cade Otton, this offense has so much firepower. Now, Tristan Wirfs, ankle injury, knee injury, going to miss the start of the season. He will be back, but it's still a really solid offensive line. It's not a terrible offensive line. And then they had a rookie running back out of Oregon and Bucky Irving show up out of nowhere, over 1,200 yards. Over 1,100 yards, surprise. 8 touchdowns. It was able to catch the ball effectively well. 47 catches for Bucky Irving for just under 400 yards. So it was a big part of the passing game for them as well. The offense has so many weapons. And then you go to the defense and you go, Todd Bowles still has veterans to work with. Now, veterans who you might argue are getting maybe over the hill, but there are still guys who the name on the back of the jersey inspires them to say, I got to wait till I see them fall off the cliff till I'm going to predict they fall off the cliff. Vita Vea, because Elijah Cansey, the young player going into year 3, the edge rusher who's, I think, ready for that breakout year. Levante David, Hassan Reddick, Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, they have some real marquee defensive players with a defensive head coach in a division with those quarterbacks where it just feels like Baker is a head and shoulders above everyone. And they have the defense that can be disruptive for the other quarterbacks that are already not as good as their own quarterback. I'll just say this about the schedule really quickly. I don't see a death stretch. I just don't. There's no 3 or 4 game stretch where you're like, ooh, good luck, Tampa. Yeah. Yes, they do have to play at Houston versus Philly versus San Francisco, at Detroit, at Buffalo, at the Rams. Those aren't easy games. Those are 6 tough games. But I'd argue Tampa is capable of competing in all of those games, and I don't expect them to go 0-6 in that stretch. I think 3-3 is very plausible for Tampa in that stretch, especially with the 3 I mentioned, Houston, Philly, and San Francisco. They played Philly really well the past couple of years. They handled the tush push. They're the only team that has proven to stop the tush push, mainly because of Vita Vea. And so while there's tough games, there's no death stretch. And Dan, at the end of the season, weeks 13 through 18,
yeah, it's very, very
it
nice.
Opens up for them. So even if they stumble through the middle of the season with those tough games, Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, Carolina.
4 divisional games in the last 5 weeks.
They could end 6-0 on a 6-game win streak and end up being a 12-5 team and winning their division again. It wouldn't shock me at all. Go into the playoffs hot. Very, very high on Tampa. Not a lot of weaknesses. I don't see the weakness. I'm concerned about Tristan Wirfs not starting the year. But again, he didn't just injure himself. It's like they've known it for a while. They're preparing for it. And, he will be back at some point in time this year from the knee injury. So a lot to like about Tampa Bay going for their 5th straight division title.
Yeah, Tampa has owned this division, and they haven't really shown any signs of slowing down. I mean, in terms of a team that didn't change a whole lot, they're up there in terms of no real huge notable signings, additions to the team this offseason. Not any massive losses, although I'll argue a little bit of their defensive depth was tested in some of the losses this year. With the likes of, Shaq Barrett and William Golston and, KJ Britt and stuff like that. So they're going to have to, work through some of that. But, and to your point, it's a very veteran-led group. My question for this team over the last several years has been, this team is old. It's an old team. And when is the, levee going to break? And
kind of like the Niners, where it just happens.
Yeah. I mean, you're just a couple big injuries away, and to be fair, any team is a couple big injuries away from having a total collapse. But the thing is, you feel like you're adding risk of that happening when I don't know what the average age of their team is right now, but certainly among the starters,
it feels like a lot of veterans.
An older team, right? Yeah. And we know Chris Godwin's dealt with injuries. Mike Evans has had his injuries, but he's been fairly reliable over his career. But he's getting older. He's in his, early to mid 30s right now at this point.
Year 12. Year 12 for Mike Evans.
Year 12. How about it? Levante David is in year 38. So it's just, that's the big questions I have. But in terms of, like we have to go into these previews with the expectation of them having all of their current, people at their disposal, it's going to be hard to not say that this team is going to win the division yet again. So I totally agree with you there. I know Rachaad White is dealing with an injury, and there's some concern there. So they are going to have to lean on Bucky Irving, which he was going to be in an even more expanded role this year. He was going to be the clear-cut number 1, but now the depth is tested in the backfield. And, it's really going to be about the other teams in this division. If they're getting better, they're now going to be putting more pressure on Tampa and straining them and making them prove that they're still the team. because it has been an easy road for Tampa over the last few years within division. They've had the worst teams in the league to contend with for that. So it's been relatively easy.
And in fairness, Tampa won the division at 10-7 last year.
Yeah.
They won it with Brady's last year at 8-9. So during this stretch, it's not like they're a 13-win team, 14-win team. Absolutely. They are the best of the worst. But Tampa has won a playoff game against Philly last year, now, 2 playoffs ago with Baker's first year in Tampa. They were very competitive then that year against Detroit, going to Detroit, that juggernaut team. Listen, they're a belonging team. They belong in the discussion. Again, what's their ceiling? If they're all healthy and they play to their absolute best, I think their ceiling is a team that could very much well be playing in an NFC title game. But, are they a Super Bowl favorite or a Super Bowl contender? I think we would agree you've got to see it to believe it a little bit, in just will they stay healthy? How will the year shake out? But listen, I don't know if Baker can do it 3 years in a row, but it's just been such an amazing thing. He has helped make Sam Darnold money. He's helped make Geno Smith money. They've all helped each other in a lot of ways. These guys were getting that second and third chance and really proving it. It's great. It's been great.
It has been incredible. And he's been doing it, with different OCs during that time, as you mentioned. So Dave Canales is there, helps resurrect him, gets himself a head coaching job in division. Then Liam Cohen comes in, does a great job, gets a head coaching job in the AFC South.
In state. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we've got Josh Grizzard. I know nothing about him. I'm not going to pretend to.
That's the first time I've heard that name.
How big of a difference does this make? That'll be the question mark. Is he changing the offense a lot? Is Baker Mayfield good enough to overcome any type of, that's where you think Baker Mayfield's weathered the storm throughout his entire career. So if there's a quarterback that can, overcome change, it's kind of second nature to him at this point, right? So, you would hope that that's not as big of a deterrent or an issue, but it's still something of note and still a question mark. All right, I want to take us to Carolina. Very interesting team. I really think this team has the capability to actually have a significant turnaround and compete for maybe not the division yet, but certainly for second place. Like, I think they're going to give Atlanta and New Orleans certainly some fits, and maybe they could steal one from Tampa. I think Carolina is shaping up to be really feisty. It's whether or not everything's going to come together. The question I put down in my notes for Carolina was, can they sustain this momentum and continue to build? Because that's the big question here. They have a lot of young receivers, a young offense entirely. We saw huge growth from Bryce Young last year, and certainly the latter half was improving week over week, it seemed. Can he sustain that? Can he be the guy this year that really gives them confidence that he's the franchise quarterback moving forward? This is a huge year for him and Dave Canales, because they now do have the pieces in place, I would argue, on offense at least, to actually show what they're capable of. You could argue early, last year, a lot, rookie receivers and, Bryce was, dealing with the benching and coming back. But now you're going in with okay, we've got our slate. There's still question lines along the offensive line, that's for sure. Defense has dudes. This is a team that, yes, they've had to kind of build themselves back, losing Brian Burns, losing some key players, but you've got Derek Brown, you've got J.C. Horn. You've really got some guys here. And so I'm intrigued by what Carolina looks like on paper going into this season. Now, coming off of a 5-win year with all of that growth we saw, what's a realistic expectation here? I think 7 wins should be the expectation for this team. And I think that maybe 8 wins, looking at 9 as the ceiling, could even be in play. And I think that's a huge win for them. They added McMillan, the talented rookie wide receiver. They added help in the pass rush unit early in the draft this year, and brought in some reinforcements for depth. So no huge major wow signings for this team, but you're hoping a second offseason with Canales. I would argue the first real offseason of confidence for Bryce Young. Maybe things turn around for this group. Really hard team for me to put my thumb on, but I do think that there's some hope here. And they have a weird schedule, Mark, because they also kind of like the Bucks, I would argue, don't have a stretch where you're like, dude, they're screwed. But they also don't have a stretch where they're like they can rattle off win streaks. So that's going to be the big question.
Well, and we just don't trust them to rattle off anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think there's early games in the season where they could be. You know,
yeah, that's true. Like Arizona, Atlanta, New England, for instance, that's a 3-game stretch where it's like, can they do something with Miami, Dallas, Jets? But that's the problem, is like I don't even view Carolina yet on that tier with even the Jets or something. Like I would think the Jets on paper are just they have more dudes.
Yeah, way more dudes.
And a team like the Cardinals, I think they could give them fits, but can Bryce Young keep up with Kyler Murray in that offense? Like they're just going to have to show a lot this year. But I have confidence, or at least hope, that something can be built here.
Yeah, if you want to get them to 7 wins, they've got to find a way to go 2-0 against New Orleans and probably 2-0 against Atlanta, with then splitting with Tampa. There's 5 wins. You know what I mean? Because the out of division schedule is tough. I'll start with the schedule because we're talking about it. Weeks 8 on, Dan. Buffalo, Green Bay, 49ers, Rams, and Tampa twice. Like, there's not a lot of wins there at the end of the season. And what made the Carolina Panthers fun at the end of last year was they were scrappy, and they win that big game at the end of the season to beat Atlanta, to really kill Atlanta's last chance hopes to maybe make a wild card run. That was an amazing game, and Bryce Young played his ass off in that game. So the schedule is workable. I agree at the beginning, weeks 1 through 7. I think they can compete with the Dallas if they play their best ball. I think they can compete with a New England, a Miami, a Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta. Yeah, right. But it's hard to hang your hat on like what they are going to be. It's year 3 for Bryce Young. I'll say this is a good thing for Bryce Young. In year 1, 2 years ago when we were talking about him, his number 1 guy was Adam Thielen.
Yeah. Adam
Thielen is now his number 3. And Adam Thielen is probably his last year of me considering him like a really solid number 3 guy. Mm-hmm. Like, and by this time next year, they better upgrade that number 3 or that number 2 position. You have Xavier Legette, who had a tough rookie season, but again, is it him or is it there were still some balls that were not
Jalen Coker came up big the last 5-6 weeks. He might be the better rookie from last year overall. True. and he might be the number 2 guy, even though they're going to give Legette every opportunity.
Yeah. And you took Tet McMillan in the first round this year. He was the top picked wide receiver. He was a lot of guys wide receiver number 1. I mean, Egbuka, we just talked about, like it's
just a tough class overall.
It's a tough class overall, but I think he could become a really good, solid NFL, 1,000 yards, 80 catches, to 8-9 touchdowns. He could become that type of guy. So all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, with Chuba Hubbard's explosion last year with almost 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, hey, wait a minute. This offensive line, remember, they spent a ton of money on that offensive line a year ago, and it's still, I would say now, a solid offensive line, a not a weak point for the team, certainly not the strength of the team at this point. But Dan, Bryce Young, I was like you, I was like, in my mind, I was just like, Bryce Young, like big step forward last year. When I looked at it, I didn't see it in the box scores. Now, I didn't go back and watch the highlights, but I did rewatch part of that game against Atlanta, that last game, and he did play well, and that was a really fun game. I'd encourage anyone who's looking for like a fun highlights to watch Week 18 Atlanta, Carolina last year.
Yeah.
where Atlanta's playing for a lot and Carolina's playing for pride in division, and everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at these two rookie head coaches with young quarterbacks. It's a really fun game. And Bryce Young, he ran for 6 touchdowns last year. I think that's the thing where I was like, oh, okay, where was Bryce Young like actively more aggressive? He ran for about the same amount of yards, but in the red zone, Canales was like, dude, we just have to score. Like there's times where you can just slip through the hole between the guard and the center or get outside the tackle really quick and just run it in. There are some of those plays for Bryce Young that I don't think he was willing to make as a rookie, that Canales basically said, you don't have a choice. You have to make some of these plays. You have to be more aggressive. We have to use you as a weapon in the red zone. We just don't have enough. But Dan, in 30 starts for Bryce Young, he started a lot of games. I know we still think of him as a young quarterback. He started a good amount of games in college, 30 games in the NFL so far. He's averaging 60% completion. That's, to me, the biggest knock. It's like his only chance, and Tua's only chance, and Brock Purdy's only chance. And you see the theme I'm going with? The undersized guys who don't have the traits. Your only chance, Baker, to be extremely successful in the NFL is to be like Drew Brees. 60% is not enough. I just said with Baker, 67, and it was really basically 70% last year with Baker.
Yeah.
And so
5 percentage points in the NFL makes a huge difference.
It does. That's
60 to 65 is a different quarterback.
That's 2-3 extra third downs a game. You know what I mean? That's extending drives. It's everything. And it's process, right? It's how are you processing? Are you making the right decisions? Are you holding onto the ball or not? So yeah. I have a huge question. I'm definitely not as high on Carolina as you are. They were only 5-12 last year. You're in the Carolina.
They burned me in the past, and they have that year. I thought Matt Rule was going to win Coach of the Year, and they were going to win the division, and they won 4 games or whatever.
Yeah. I'm going to take your word on the defense. My look of the defense when I went over them for this was just like, okay, yes, J.C. Horn, but like, it's a lot of youth. And so it's like I need to by this time next year be saying to myself, oh, okay, I know that guy's name. Oh yeah, that guy's name. Like I need 1 or 2 of these guys to also like step up and be an 11 sack type of person. A'Shawn Robinson is the name. I'm like, oh, I know A'Shawn Robinson. He's been in the league like 9 years. Like, it's like, and he did have a nice year last year in Carolina, but I'm looking at these names and I'm like, what? And it's so I need some of these young guys they've invested high picks in and whatever picks they've had since the big trade to go. So we'll see. Carolina, I think your ceiling is it's the right projection, meaning this is the growth you need to see. You were a 5-win team last year. Can you push it to an 8-win team this year? I have less confidence in just because, again, I think by week 4 next year, after they play the Jags, Arizona, Atlanta, New England, if they're 2-2 through that stretch, I will feel like, no, this could be a team that maybe gets to 8 wins and is a feistier team. And then the Bryce Young question will be huge next offseason because you're going into year 4. Do you pick up the 5th year? What do you do with all that? And how he plays and his growth is going to be another must-watch storyline for this year for the Panthers and for the NFL.
Yeah. And look, the offensive line by midseason could actually turn into being like the absolute strength of the team because they've got a lot of promise there. It's the interior, their bookend tackles are good, but it's their interior that have a lot of question marks about, and that's going to be a big factor in their run game and their ability to stay in games with a lot of teams. So, I think when all is said and done, I expect my projections to come close to maybe that like 7-ish win area, but we'll see later on this month when we do our full preseason predictions. But hopeful for Carolina.
It's going to be
I really want Bryce Young to succeed because I think he handled everything really well. Like
he's been a really model citizen,
easy guy to root for.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be hard for me when we're picking these games to not just look at Carolina still as an easy win for a lot of teams, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be one of those things I got to keep reminding myself, like, hey, can Carolina sneakily win a couple of those games that you would have the last 2 years just circled? It's a loss. It's a loss. It's a loss. All right. I'm going to Hotlanta. And this is a Falcons team. It was 8-9 last year, year 2 of Raheem Morris and Michael Penix Jr. We don't have to talk about Kirk Cousins at all. Listen, Michael Penix, it's so funny to me. I'm trying to think of it as complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, the amount of media scrutiny on Caleb Williams is just insane. And I get it. We had talked about him for 2 years in college, his last 2 years, really almost 3 years of college, of being like the superstar and like the next number 1 pick. So that builds up in a lot of casual fans. And when casual fans, then it's an easy name. It's Chicago. It's easy to be like, duh, Bears stupid, Caleb sucks, pin nails, like, duh.
Yeah.
And so Michael Penix is another one of these guys where people are like, you know, I'm reading the Mike Sando. I don't know if you saw the Mike Sando quarterback tears. And that just came out.
I didn't actually. I
was thinking about tagging you in it, but I was like, we would spend 20, 30 minutes on this. So it's just not worth the time. But to look at it, Mike Sando does it every year. And he talks to like 8 current GMs, 5 former GMs, 8 current coaches, 5 assistant coaches, you know, 4 former coaches, and then a bunch of personnel people and whatever, right? So basically talks like 50 people and has them rank these guys in tiers, all the starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, looking at it right now.
Caleb ends up basically like almost half of the people put him in tier like 4 or 5, like the bottom tier. And I'm saying all this because I'm about to drop stats on you that, again, it's just like, it's the compliment, right? Like, there was not a week last year, not 1 week last year, that Drake May or Michael Penix played better than Caleb Williams. There's just, statistically, it did not happen, right? Look at the box scores, look at the results, watch the footage. There was not a week where Drake May or Michael Penix was better than Caleb Williams. I'm not going to argue with you on the other two. That Jane Daniels became a superstar and Bo Nix played very, very consistently, very well with a Hall of Fame head coach telling him exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Caleb Williams had 3 offensive coordinators. Michael Penix Jr. had a 58% completion in 5 games. Again, he is in the category more like a CJ Stroud because he's physically a little bigger than the Tuas, than the Kyler Murrays. But you are not a weapon. You are not a physical weapon. Your only weapon is, I'm going to complete 70% of my balls and I'm going to pick you apart. 58% completion percentage, 775 yards in 5 games. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He did run for 1 touchdown, 7 carries, 11 yards in 5 games. He's not a weapon, okay? And so I'm seeing so much hype about Michael Penix. I'm rooting for the kid. I have no qualms to say I don't want him to be good, but I need to set a standard here of how everything's leading towards us getting to the Bears and talking Caleb Williams and you talking Steelers on the North, right? So I have to set a standard here. Michael Penix Jr., I think I have no faith in like, oh, Atlanta's going to be really good. I mean, Atlanta, boom, they're going to win 2-0 versus Carolina. I don't feel that way right now at all. A lot of that has to do, Dan, with the defense. You have the defensive coach, Raheem Morris. You let Grady Jarrett go. No Matthew Judon back. You look at that defense, it's Leonard Floyd and Ellis, who's a tackling machine, but Ellis isn't like, he's not Luke Kuechly. You know what I mean? He's a very good run your defense linebacker who tackles a ton of people. But like, you bring in Leonard Floyd, where's the 12 sacks? Where's the defense that is going to get after Baker Mayfield and be explosive? I don't see it at all.
They're going to need 2 rookie defensive ends to really be the dudes.
Right? And again, I was gonna get to them. Like, okay, so on the other half of that, right, Mark? Well, they draft the two guys, but they gave up a lot to get those two guys, and 2 first-round picks plus multiple picks next year, and you're banking on, again, rookies in that sense. There's a lot of rookies. We'll get to it in the AFC South. You know what I mean? A year ago, everyone's like, well, they drafted the rookie first round. He's going to be a stud edge rusher. Like 4 sacks. Like, right? Like, it can take a year, right? Not everyone's Jared Verse where they pop in a rookie year and they're explosive. Now, you'd like to think that absolutely one of them is going to hit, right? So there's something, right? You have one guy to go with Leonard Floyd, who's a very professional, but I'm really worried about this defense. Obviously, they have the offensive weapons are all there for Michael Penix Jr. It's a lot like for Caleb Williams. Like, there's no excuses, right? You have Bijan Robinson, top 3 running back in the league. He was fan-frickin-tastic last year. 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, 61 catches for over 400 yards. 17 games back-to-back years for Bijan Robinson. So he's been a workhorse 2 years in a row. Tyler Algiers is a very capable backup. A wide receiver core that's got Drake London, Mooney, who's injured, but he'll be okay. Ray McLeod, Kyle Pitts you throw in there. An offensive line that is, they lost Drew Dahlman, but you still have Jake Matthews. You still have Lindstrom. Like, it's a quality offensive line. So I have a huge question on defense, and I have a huge question mark at quarterback. And then I have a head coach in Raheem Morris that, again, show me why I should have concrete faith in Raheem Morris. I just don't see it. And Dan, their start is about as tough as a start as you can get out to.
Yeah, that's tough.
Tampa, Minnesota, which Minnesota, we have no idea. They have a top 5 roster in the NFL, but we just don't know yet what Minnesota's going to be like. So you have Tampa, Minnesota, Carolina, Washington, a bye week, and then Buffalo 49ers. Like, that's tough. Michael Penix Jr. is not the best quarterback in any of those games, except for maybe the Minnesota game. But maybe by week 2, we'll know that J.J. McCarthy's a stud and he goes out week 1 and he balls out, or, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know yet. So, like, I can't guarantee you that Michael Penix Jr. is a better quarterback in any of those games. And I certainly can't guarantee you that Atlanta has a better roster than any of those teams, except for maybe Carolina. That's the team I'd say they have a better roster probably than Carolina, but that's it. And then Dan, if they can somehow survive and if Michael Penix can grow, they do have a really workable end of the year. So Miami, New England, Indy, Carolina, New Orleans, Jets, Seattle to round it out. They can be battling. I have no idea what to make of Atlanta this year. I feel like they were 8-9 last year. I might just pencil them in for 8-9 again. And a lot of that is because of the head coach, the quarterback, and a defense I just don't have the faith in. Those 3 things. And those are 3 key things.
Yeah, and it's a defensive line that lost a ton of, dudes there as well. Eddie Goldman, Matthew Judon. So
Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, Grady Jarrett. So yeah, what's going to happen there? Are those rookies going to, even if one pops, you kind of need both of them to be really good, to elevate this defense, because there's just not much there for them right now. You pair that with the complete unknown of a Michael Penix, you chalk this up to being his rookie year essentially. So yeah, it's all revolving around Penix's performance. If he's the guy that can get the ball in the hands of Drake London, the dump offs to Bijan Robinson, if they can do enough through the air to open up some running lanes for Bijan and company, I think that's going to obviously be a huge factor, because, for much of that was Kirk Cousins under center. And even though he was injured and was coming off an injury and not looking himself early parts of the year, defenses still respect Kirk Cousins and his ability to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers. And so Bijan Robinson played amazing, and he even did when Michael Penix was in there too. So I'm not, trying to put that, down at all. But if Penix struggles to begin the year, teams will just put 8 guys in the box and be like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, Drake London's amazing, but you got to find a way to somehow get him the ball, and we don't trust that you can. So we're going to sell out, stop Bijan Robinson, and make you beat us through the air. Penix is going to have to prove early on that he can win games with his arm and get this team over that proverbial hump that they've been in for quite some time. That's going to be the big question mark, and that's really all I have to add. To that conversation with Atlanta, because I agree with everything you touched on and what you said about their prospects for this upcoming season. I think it is going to be a lot of the same, and you just hope that Michael Penix is able to grow a little bit into the role, and maybe they win a couple games differently than they did last year. Ultimately, likely will end up at the same result of 8 wins. Maybe they get to 9, who knows? But it's really going to be about finding out if Penix is the guy.
Yeah. And I think we both would agree, like, in a year from now, I want to be talking about Michael Penix. Wow, what a great year that was. And he stepped up and he threw 66% and he had 3,600 yards and he stayed pretty healthy. And hey, now we got a guy, and this team's, building around this guy, right? You want teams to hit on quarterbacks. I have to stress, through 5 games, I just don't know what anyone saw to sit there and for people to be that,
to be
that just
hyped about it.
Well, and just to not this no one talking on a national level at all about it. Yet every day I turn on every show and it's like Caleb Williams. It's like it's like, yeah, I just want to blow my brains out. I just want him to go for 500 yards and 7 touchdowns week 1 at Monday Night Football against Minnesota. I need it.
Let's, you know what the New Orleans Saints need? They need a quarterback.
Yes. Well, maybe they found one. That deep ball from Shuck in preseason.
That was nice. I will say though, it's just like looking at that game, and yes, that was nice. That was a nice touchdown. The pick 6 was equally as horrific.
Yeah.
So I was just left that game like, wow. None of these quarterbacks really wowed us. Shuck did provide the only touchdown among the 3 of them. But Rattler didn't throw a pick. The other 2 did. Nobody was super efficient or blowing you away. So really, I'm just wondering who is the quarterback come week 1, who's going to be the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints during the 2025 season, and will it even matter? Those are all the big questions, because I don't know if any of these guys will really matter at the end of the day, which is why I think I would advocate for them to just have Shuck go out there. Maybe Rattler, but I would be against Hainer because they've had him in the system for the longest amount of time, and he hasn't elevated to the point where anything's come of it. So,
well, it is a new head coach with Kellen Moore, so the system has changed.
Yeah, it's a new system for sure. I just don't feel confident with any of the guys, and this is, again, they're like the Tampa Bay light, like they have a decent roster, and they have for several years. They've just been missing the quarterback and kind of the direction as an organization, right? Like they've had Dennis head coach purgatory for a while. But they have a decent roster. Like they have a decent offensive line. They have weapons. They have a run game. They have a star wide receiver. They've got guys on defense that, can play and give you at least stability there. But they just haven't been able to put anything together from the quarterback play. And that's really been, the death knell for them. 5-12 last year. They're doomed for another 5-12 season, if that, because of the quarterback. And that's why I think we can't really judge Kellen Moore on this season.
Yeah.
It's going to be about, are they going to be able to get their guy for the future next year? Or is Tyler Shuck the surprise of the season? That's what we're here to find out.
Yeah. Kellen Moore, this season's about Kellen Moore. Like, can he create a locker room? Can he create a culture? And can Saints fans and us as observers go, hey, listen, it's not the head coach. Like this guy feels like he's, another one of these whiz young kid offensive, minds that is going to be fine in this league. Listen, you mentioned the weapons. Kamara in 14 games last year was still fantastic. Almost 1,000 yards rushing. It 1,500 total yards, basically missed it by 7 yards. including 68 receptions. I mean, Kamara is still an extremely valuable weapon in this league. Olave, Shaheed, Brandon Cooks was with Kellen Moore in Dallas. So that's going to be a good safety blanket too. I know Brandon Cooks is older, but as a third receiver, struggling with the tight end, obviously Taysom Hill is on the pup. He's probably going to miss the year. They did improve their offensive line. The offensive line, my weather guy, Nick Patrick, who was on our draft show, he thinks the offensive line is actually a strength. So I'm going to trust him on that. He knows his team. And then you add Kelvin Banks Jr. from Oregon Texas.
Yeah, that was a good pick. Yeah, I forgot.
I think that's all positive. I would start Rattler. I'd say, listen, unless there's something that you really see with Shuck, it's obviously Kellen Moore's choice. But I would want, if I was a Saints fan, I'd want to know for sure that Rattler's not the guy, because the season's always better. The last thing you want to do is start Shuck, and by week 6, you're like, we can't even get a first down. Please just throw in Rattler. The season's more fun if it's by week 6, you're like, okay, Rattler's just not the guy, and we're 2-4, and it's clear he's not, and he's let's see what the rookie can do. You know what I mean? And then by that time, you're kind of in tank mode anyways, and you're aching for Arch. The schedule, I will say, is going to be really interesting. Everyone's penciling in as the Saints being the number 1 pick next year, and maybe Arch Manning goes to save the franchise his grandfather tried to save. But Dan, post week 11 bye.
Yeah.
Atlanta, Miami, Tampa, Carolina, Jets, Tennessee, Atlanta. There's some games in there
favorable.
There are some games there where you could say to yourself, do we have a situation like when Houston and Chicago, you know what I mean, we're kind of battling, and Chicago really needed Houston to win to get that 1 seed, and Houston didn't need to win? You could see it. Maybe it's like, why did you beat Carolina, you scumbags? Now we don't have the number 1 pick. Yeah. Why did you beat the Tennessee Titans or the Jets in those last couple of weeks? So that's one storyline to watch out for. Otherwise, the Saints are going to be hey, there's guys you want on your fantasy team like Kamara and Olave, and maybe throw a flyer on Brandon Cooks late as a guy who might catch a ton of balls. And you have guys like a Cam Jordan and a Chase Young and a Kool-Aid McKinstry on defense who are names that you know. But otherwise, it's the quarterback position. Good luck to either of them. Again, I wish them both well. I hope one of them has an insanely awesome year, and we're not talking about the Saints as a bottom dweller, and they have their quarterback of the future. I'm not believing in that.
All right, let's turn our attention to the AFC South. You want to kick us off here with your team of choice?
Yeah. I'm going to start again with a team that I think has earned the talking first, and that's the Houston Texans, 10-7 last year. Year 3 of CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. Again, the continuity between them. Listen, CJ Stroud, was it a sophomore slump, or was it, hey, they went out and they got him, Stephon Diggs, to go with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, and then it's like a bomb went off in that wide receiver room, right? It was still a solid year. 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,700 yards. Here's my concern with CJ Stroud and for the Texans overall. In rookie year in 23, he was only sacked 38 times. He was sacked 52 times last year. So is that CJ Stroud taking a mental step back? Is that the offensive line, which was a problem? They just needed to address it. Or is it some sort of weird combination of both? I think it's a storyline to watch out for this year. Is CJ Stroud, we know he's not the most mobile guy, but to get sacked that many times, an increase of 14 sacks, and he played in 2 more games, it's concerning for sure. Obviously, they have a really, really B+ A- running back room. Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Dameon Pierce. I think Chubb is going to start the season maybe injured, but he'll be available. Joe Mixon dealing with some injuries as well. But when all 3 of those guys are healthy, that's an A- B+ running back room for sure. A very nice 10 tight end in Dalton Schultz. we know that Tank Dell is probably not going to play this year at all. You have this interesting Nico Collins, Christian Kirk. I like that for CJ Stroud. Christian Kirk, kind of team 3, prove it. Can he, hang around as a really nice wide receiver 2 to a Nico Collins, who's their wide receiver 1? And then that wide receiver 3/wide receiver 2, the rookie out of Iowa State, the second rounder Higgins. He's a very interesting player,
Jalen Noel as well.
Noel, and then you have Braxton Berrios and Mechie, who was a high draft pick just a couple of years ago as well. So they have bodies in that wide receiver room, and they have a clear number 1 in Nico Collins. So I think the pecking order, finding out, will Christian Kirk be that 2, or will he slot to the 3? Will someone pop as the new 2? And then you have an embarrassment maybe of riches by this time next year when Tank Dell does return. Listen, the O-line, they make the trade and they get rid of Laremy Tunsil, and then you add Trent Brown, but he's injured. He's on the pup. Cam Robinson moving to left tackle. He has had some struggles. I mean, he's a good player. I don't know if he's an elite tackle anymore. This is an offensive line that, again, with the sack issues, is going to be highly looked upon. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny on the offensive line. The defense is nasty. It's an elite group. It's a very, very good group. Will Anderson, Sheldon Rankins, Daniil Hunter, getting that front 7 is very, very good. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Derek Stingley Jr., they have names, they have bodies, they have a great defensive mind at their head coach. I fully expect them to be a problem in the AFC South for the young quarterbacks and the bad quarterbacks in the division. Tough games. Listen, they have them. They have them. No death stretch, but you have at Rams, home against Tampa, at Baltimore, home against San Fran, home against Buffalo, at KC. Is Houston better than all of those teams when they're at their healthiest? I think probably they can compete with Tampa and San Fran to say we're better than them, right? But are they better than the Buffalo Bills at their healthiest if both teams are 100% on 100%? No. Are they better than Kansas City, 100%, 100%? No. Are they better than Baltimore? So they have tough games, but they don't have tough stretches. Week post-Thanksgiving, they've got to step on the gas post-Thanksgiving. Kansas City is in there, but you have 2 games versus Indy, Arizona, Las Vegas, and then the Chargers, who, especially with the Rashawn Slater injury, aren't as strong as they were 2 weeks ago. So that's a stretch where you could see, hey, maybe even if Houston is kind of, 6-4 and kind of raising malaise through the season and ups and downs, maybe they rattle some wins off there in that stretch. Besides that Kansas City game, I could easily see them, beating Indy twice, Arizona, Las Vegas, and the Chargers. Those are teams I know they're either better than or can be better than. And they play Kansas City tough. It's not like they don't play Kansas City tough. It wouldn't shock me if they beat Kansas City. But again, just going off paper, I like Houston. I like Houston at 10-7. I feel like they are that type of team again this year. I think there's not enough people talking about year 3 of CJ Stroud and where's that arrow going? Because we had a skyrocket and then we had a kind of dip / hold. And so that's all it feels like to me, a lot of pressure on it with a defensive head coach. People aren't going to blame CJ Stroud. Again, if he takes another year step back, it's going to be, we got to get CJ Stroud help. I think a lot of people think he's the guy. I think he's the guy. So that's when people start looking at that coaching staff. So pressure on D'Amico and Stroud to prove, no, like Josh Allen and his defensive head coach, we can do this together.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head for a variety of reasons. It's going to be, can they stay healthy this year? Will that offensive line that has been completely rebuilt live up to their expectations? Because if not, it is really like all riding on that, right? You're already dealing with question marks about like Joe Mixon and what the backfield's gonna look like. And you need the offensive line to be performing and kind of be at midseason form by week 1, to be honest. CJ Stroud gonna need to stabilize a little bit, and we'll see if those wide receivers can live up to their hype. But it is a really good wide receiver core. It's a really good roster in general. So I agree with a lot of what you said there. I'm going to take us to Jacksonville, if I may.
Yes. Okay.
Fun team to look at because it's a team that's had so much hype over the last several years and has never been able to quite live up to the expectations, and then really kind of hit somewhat of a new low despite the Urban Meyer experiment last year with 4 wins, the injuries to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence needs to stay healthy this year. I mean, that's what it is. I'm not even going to come here and say like, we need Trevor Lawrence to play better and no. Trevor Lawrence just needs to stay healthy for one. Just be healthy, be available for 17 games this year, prove that you can be reliable. And, obviously the second part of that equation is, how is Liam Cohen as a head coach? Because the pieces are in place for this team, and they were last year and the year before too. The roster is now getting to a point where it should be at its peak or entering its peak in terms of Lawrence, in terms of, Walker and a lot of their younger players who are now considered veterans in this league, year 3, year 4. Yes, they lost Evan Ingram. Yes, they lost, some Brandon Sheriff and, some pieces, Luke Farrell, but they've also brought in reinforcements along the offensive line. That was a big thing that has hurt this team for several years. Yes, they brought in Travis Hunter. Where's he going to play? Is he going to be that dynamic wide receiver that they've been looking for? They know that they got one of them in Brian Thomas last year. If Travis Hunter pops, we could be talking about the best wide receiver core in the league next to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's how dynamic this group could be if Travis Hunter actually performs like he's expected to. So Jacksonville has a massive turnaround that they need to perform, because 4 wins last year was so low, Mark, that even a 4-win turnaround I don't think is enough. Like, I don't think an 8-win season's enough for Jacksonville. They need to get to 10 wins. They need to do this fast, because I don't think there's enough time here. Even though Liam Cohen's certainly going to get a leash, it's not going to be 1 year and then he's done. But we've talked about this for years. Like, they need to kick it into gear, and especially if they get a healthy 17 games out of Trevor Lawrence and they still don't get past 8 wins, how can you consider that a successful year, even though they doubled their win totals from the year prior? I just don't see it. If Trevor Lawrence is healthy, this team needs to be competing for the division, and they really need to find their way to squeak into the wild card, in my view, to consider this an actual winning season, or an actual win, whether you want to call it not a metaphorical win, but you know what I'm saying. I get
it. I get it.
Curious if that's actually going to happen.
Listen,
actually going to stay healthy.
With Liam Cohen, if you told me the Jags end up after his first year with 8 wins, I think that would be something we'd say, I agree with you, not like oh my God, this is amazing. But I think Jags fans would breathe a huge sigh of relief, because I think if the Jags are an 8-win team, then Trevor Lawrence played the majority of the games, and Trevor Lawrence played well enough in the majority of the games. I think So a lot of what you said was really, really good stuff. I want to push back on a couple things, and then I want to add just a couple little things here. In 2022, Trevor Lawrence, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns. He ran for almost 300 yards, 4,000 yards passing, played all 17 games, 66% completion percentage. That was the guy. And that's when they won that playoff game against the Chargers. That was the guy. Injuries, setbacks. He is now going into year 5, and this is his 3rd head coach. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. Absolutely. And
It's
he's gone through the worst of the worst.
And in 10 games last year, I think one of the reasons why it got so ugly is because he did play 10 games. And in those 10 games, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 60% completion. And that was with Brian Thomas Jr. emerging as a true number 1.
Yeah.
So it's not great. It was not great. I think it was mentally messed up. I think it was just a really poor offensive line play.
And he wasn't fully healthy,
And yeah, he was battling through injuries. So I will add this. Can I ask you a question? What's a stat line for Travis Hunter that you think is all right, I'm going to bet that stat line. I'm going to bet he reaches this stat line. Because I have a stat line that I think it's if he hits that, I would be blown away. I'd be like, all right, for everything he's trying to do, this is the kind of stat line I created in my head.
I will qualify this by saying I think his impact is more important in how he affects the game versus hitting a specific stat line. For instance, if he has 40 catches next year, but 12 of them are 50+ yard catches in huge moments, third downs, he's having game-breaking touchdowns, and then he's also playing defense, for several snaps or whatever, I will say, okay, you got what you wanted out of this guy, because Brian Thomas is your go-to, consistent dude. Travis Hunter is now this big play, massive threat that you have to account for anytime he's on the field, and that would be enough. His presence alone then would be enough to sway. But in terms of, a stat line that I would say, wow, really
you got to
solid.
bet money. You got to bet money. All right, I think he's going to get to this. This is hey.
I think I would bet 55 catches for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns.
So it's so funny. I had 60 for 800 and 6 touchdowns. So we were right there. I think we're putting too much. Again, that he could double. If that was actually he ends up with 85 catches and 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, I wouldn't be shocked because he's that special. We just don't know what his snap count's going to be like. And I think what you're saying there by the impact in the game, remember, Brian Thomas Jr., there was a moment early in the season I was like, who's this kid? You had to remind me, no, that's the kid from LSU, the draft, because you're just Brian Thomas Jr. It's not Odell Beckham. It's not Jamar
and he wasn't,
Chase.
Nobody was raving about him.
He's
going
just
into the
Brian
draft
Thomas Jr. And he was 87 catches in 17 games, basically 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. When that's Trevor Lawrence only playing 10 games. I mean, he was
right.
He became a true number 1. So what you want from Travis Hunter, in my opinion, is when you look at the weakness of their wide receiver 3, you're talking about Diami Brown, Parker Washington, Joshua Cephas, some of the other names on that wide receiver room. What you need him to be is enough of a threat constantly, like you said, a big play threat to where it gives Trevor Lawrence other easy completions, because the tight end room is trash. They have some guy named Brenton Strange. He's in his 3rd year.
Brenton Strange is the man, dude. He was dominant at Penn State. I've been waiting for this guy to come through.
He's going to year 3, second round out of Penn State. Last year had 40 catches, 400 yards, and 2 tutties. So I say that meaning they don't have a guy, right? You're used to thinking oh no, they have that tight end, right? They have. This is not a tight end group that is strong. Maybe he has a breakout year now because he's number 1 in the depth chart and he gets his chance.
Yeah, and he's more of a dual guy anyway. He's more of a blocking guy.
So,
he's definitely not Evan Engram.
And yes, Etienne and Bigsby are both solid, but none of them are what we would say is like Joe Mixon, right? None of them is a star, but guys who can catch the ball in the backfield. So the pressure is on Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. The defense, listen, it's time, like you said, you nailed it. It's time for some of these guys to step up. Josh Allen's been great, and he got paid. Josh Hines Allen, or whatever he names himself. They add Eric Armstead. He's a ginormous human being. He should be a really key player for them this year. We need Trayvon Walker to step up. He was the number 1 pick 3 years ago. He has been kind of just an okay NFL player. He's got to have that breakout double-digit sack year. Devin Lloyd, a very good player. Can they survive weeks 1 through 7?
Right, because I'm glad you pointed out that because after week 7,
dude,
it's very, very,
it's conducive
to a winning strategy.
So in weeks 1 through 7, yes, they have Carolina, but Dan, they have to go at Cincy. So you're going up against you're not winning that quarterback battle, right? We think you have to play against Houston, division rival, which again Houston's won the division last 2 years, has outplayed you. You then go at the 49ers and then Kansas City, Seattle, and the Rams. Now, you do get Seattle and the Rams at home. You don't have to travel for them. But those are teams right now that we feel better about them than we do Jacksonville. So if you survive that stretch at, let's just say, 3-4, or even 2-5.
I think 3-4 would be.
But a positive 2-5, right? Dan, after the bye, Vegas, Arizona, 2 games against Tennessee, 2 games against Indy and the Jets. The Jaguars have got to go 4-0 against Indy and Tennessee. If they can do that, then I'm with you. Then this is that 9-win team that's right there battling, and that means Trevor Lawrence is having a good year. It all falls in Trevor Lawrence and his relationship with Liam Cohn. Him and Kellen Moore are the 2 rookie head coaches that I'm like, I need to see your culture, right? I'm close to Ben Johnson right now. So as a rookie coach, I'm getting a lot of his culture. We saw Aaron Glenn's culture in week 1 against the preseason against Green Bay. So I have a sense of some other rookie head coaches' culture. I have no sense of what the culture is in Jacksonville and New Orleans or what they want to be. Are they going to be a run-heavy team? Are they going to be a pass-heavy team? Are they going to be a hard-nosed football team? Like, what's that culture going to be? And how do they respond to some adversity, which they will face early in the year? Jacksonville's a fun storyline this year. So many things that we'll be talking about with Jacksonville throughout the year.
Yeah, no doubt. They are going to dominate headlines for us on the show.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Trevor Lawrence for a long time.
You went Jacksonville, so I'm going to go to Indianapolis. So let's get to the Colts. They were 8-9 last year. Shane Steichen, year 3 of Shane Steichen, I believe now.
Yep.
And Anthony Richardson It's
year 2 for Anthony Richardson.
No, it's year 3 for Anthony Richardson. It's year 3.
Oh,
so
you're right.
So it's year 4 for Shane Steichen.
Yep.
AR versus DJ. Dan, I mean, I did my kind of average stats. So let's listen to this. In 6 seasons for Daniel Jones, 6 seasons. If you add up all 6 of his seasons together and divide it out, 16-game season, he throws for 2,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, and almost 8 interceptions. Now, he does run for basically 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's just the same as what we've seen in 15 games. In 15 games from Anthony Richardson, basically the same amount of yards a season, 23 to 24, 11 touchdowns to 11 touchdowns. Now, he throws a lot more picks. He's had 13 interceptions in 15 games. But Anthony Richardson, in 15 games, has rushed for 635 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's impressive. I mean, that's Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Like, that is an elite running quarterback. Now, again, he's already injured in the preseason. A freak thing, but he injured his finger. It's like the guy can't stay healthy.
Well, and also it's like year 3, you should recognize that pressure off the edge. That's high school ball where wherever the pressure's coming from, you have a guy. He had a guy right there in the flat that you got to hit him, and he didn't even look.
It's just it's bad, right? Like this is the QB battle that's just as ugly as the Saints. It's like I don't really care who wins.
Yeah.
But I do think
there's more at stake for this one.
I do think there is more at stake for the careers for both of these guys.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones isn't probably going to get another chance. And I think Anthony Richardson might get a chance somewhere.
He will if Trey Lance is still getting chances.
But it will be with no guarantees and with no hype and with no fanfare or whatever it might be. Jonathan Taylor going into year 6. He's coming off of 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's a stud, top 5 back in the league when healthy. The wide receivers, Dan, listen, Joshua Downs, he really stepped up. 72 catches, 803 yards, 5 touchdowns. Michael Pittman Jr., obviously, he's going to year 6 as well. He's the number 1, we think. But in 16 games last year, he had less touchdowns, 5 more yards, and 3 less catches than Josh Downs. So I know he's the body number 1. He's the name number 1. But when you add in that the rest of their wide receiver core is Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell, it's not great. But that's where you enter the rookie tight end from Penn State, Tyler Warren, second tight end drafted. Many people thought he would go as the first tight end drafted. They also have Mo Alley Cox, who's a very capable NFL tight end. So there are weapons. When you say to yourself, hey, can DJ or AR, what do they have to work with? Well, they have Quentin Nelson, and they have an okay offensive line. It's not great. And then you have Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, who are solid wide receivers. And you have Tyler Warren and Mo Alley Cox, like you and Jonathan Taylor. Like, there are weapons there. So it's not like the cupboard is bare. And then you have an offensive coach, Shane Steichen, being the ultimate weapon for you. Defense-wise,
they're like the worst team with the best roster.
In a weird way. I'm with you there. DeForest Buckner, Quiddy Payne on defense, Latu, however you say his name, only 4 sacks as a rookie. You hope that he pops in year 2. Easy schedule going into the bye. I mean, not easy, but workable. A lot of names we've been saying: the Raiders, the Cardinals, Tennessee twice, Atlanta. But post week 10, not easy. Not easy for them. It's Kansas City, it's Houston, it's Seattle, it's 49ers, it's Houston, and it's the Jags. So you have 2 against Houston, 2 against the Jags, the 2 teams in the division I think are better than you. I know Houston is. I think Jacksonville is. And then you have a 49ers, Seattle, Kansas City in there. That's tough. So Colts 8-9 last year. I'm not feeling confident the Colts are getting back to 8-9 this year, unless someone really surprises me here the rest of the preseason in or week 1 or 2 at the quarterback position. If one of them really plays with a lot more confidence.
If Anthony Richardson's finger is good to go by the regular season, who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback of this team?
So it's not so I think it's going to be Daniel Jones. But if I was the Colts, I would start AR. Going to AR mid-season because Daniel Jones is not good.
It's not a good form.
That's bad. That just reeks.
Yeah.
Selling yourself, and listen, we drafted AR. We're working with AR. He's healthy, and this is his last chance, and he knows it. And I know that's a lot of pressure, but we're not going to pull him just because of 1 interception. But we're going to give him a 4 games here, whatever. We got a workable start to the season. And if you're losing a game because of AR, go to Daniel Jones and then let Daniel Jones try to see what kind of type of career he could have with Shane Steichen and righting the ship. But then at that point, if Daniel Jones isn't winning games, the Colts need to lose. And they need to go get Peyton Manning's nephew, Arch Manning, with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, how about that? What a storyline that would be for the Colts to get that. Yeah, a lot of teams in play for Arch Manning. That would make some great storylines for sure.
Even though he says he's going back to college. He says he's going back to staying.
We'll see. All right, let's round this thing out with the Tennessee Titans. Of course, Cam Ward, who still remains the least talked about number 1 overall pick.
Well, Caleb Williams. We got to talk about Caleb Williams. Everyone's got to talk about Caleb Williams.
Had a decent, perfectly fine start to his preseason career and led them down a touchdown drive, 65-yard touchdown drive. Obviously it's all going to depend on how Cam Ward performs, but I think this team had a good offseason. They brought in a lot of reinforcements, nothing sexy, but helped bring in reinforcements for the offensive line. Drafted, of course, Ward, but also rounded out some big needs on defense. I think the wide receiver Iomanor was a really interesting pick when they took him in the mid rounds. So we'll see if he's able to get a rapport with him, as well as Xavier Restrepo. They've obviously got Calvin Ridley there, so they've got some dudes that he can rely on to maybe help soften that. But it is still a team that is just, depleted in terms of guys. I mean, that was what the offseason was about, was just filling out this team with dudes, NFL players. And the draft was kind of a step in that direction. They got some, older veteran players to, as I said, kind of build out some depth. But this is a team that's going to need another offseason and probably one more after that to really start to fill out this roster. Is just a team that needed bodies and capable guys throughout it. So it's going to be a process, Mark. I think our expectations are pretty low for Tennessee in what is this, year 2 for Brian Callahan. So I think they've cleansed themselves of the Will Levis situation. Mason Rudolph is no longer there. They are starting with a brand new quarterback room. And unfortunately for them, they're in a division that is probably getting more difficult this year, I would argue, outside of maybe Indy kind of petering off and being neutral. But I expect Houston to be a little bit better, and I certainly expect Jacksonville to be better. So that's going to be tough for Tennessee. And then, Mark, as we kind of look through their schedule too, it's kind of difficult. There's a stretch there in the middle with Vegas, with Arizona, Vegas, New England, and Indy that I think is their opportunity, if they can, to go 3-1. Probably won't, but that's really the opportunity, I think, for them to get some wins. Otherwise, the start of the year isn't great. Nobody wants to start in Denver, and then they gotta, host the Rams after that. Finish the end of the season with kind of a rough stretch there with San Fran, Kansas City, and then end the season at Jacksonville. So it's not the easiest schedule. It's not the hardest either, but it's tough. And they're going to play some good opponents in a year where it's really just about getting Cam Ward as up to speed on the NFL game as possible. Continue to establish that Brian Callahan team. I think this is kind of a punt it. We'll reevaluate in 2026, see what we've got with Cam Ward. This is really a testing ground, in my view, for him.
What I hope they don't do with Cam Ward is let him get into shootouts, in the sense of, this defense is not good. You have Jeffrey Simmons. You had Harold Landry last year. He had 9 sacks, but he's gone. Listen, I get it. I'm not a Titans beat reporter. I don't follow everything. But as I'm going through the Titans roster on defense, I'm like, again, who are these guys? Like, they need like to add stars to that defense, or have these guys develop into stars besides Simmons. So listen, if you're losing a game 33-15 in the third quarter, don't go out there and make Cam Ward throw the ball 50 times. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I hope they avoid. You have Tony Pollard. I get it. He's not a bell cow back, but you have it. To me, the strength of your team is your offensive line. Peter Skoronski 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. You have Cushenberry, Zeitler, J.C. Latham. This is a really good young, and veteran mixed offensive line, to where you say to yourself,
agreed,
let's lean on this offensive line. Let's keep Cam Ward standing upright. Cam Ward is in practice. The videos, there's been a lot of great film. Could I see Tennessee being the team? They might be the team that I bet, like, I don't know what their over-under wins is in Vegas, but if it's like 5.5, I think I might sneaky take the over on them. Yes, they have a tough schedule. They do have to play at the Niners, Kansas City, at Denver, the Rams, Houston twice. But Dan, they have the Colts and they have New Orleans. So you have 2 games against the Colts, a game against New Orleans. They also play a Cleveland team, which I think they might be better than, and their strength can handle Cleveland's strength, which is Cleveland's defensive line. They have a Raiders game, which you never know. I'm not sold on the Raiders 100%. And then they have an Arizona game, +2 against the Jags. Could this be a team that sneakily finds their way to 6-7 wins? I think it's possible. I think it's possible because of the offensive line. And if Cam Ward plays, above average football for a rookie quarterback, which I think he's more than capable of doing with an offensive coach, a really solid offensive line. And you mentioned it, Calvin Ridley, but also Dan, Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson. Those are 3 vets who are going to be, all of them, absolute security blankets for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, there's a good guys to have on the team for sure.
And then
with a young quarterback.
And Chigakonkwo, the tight end, he really came on last year too. So he's got dudes, he's got veterans, and then he's got an offensive line that should keep him upright most of the time. I'm very excited for Cam Ward's rookie season. And if you're Indianapolis, if Cam Ward pops and Trevor Lawrence has a comeback year to where he did in 2022, you've got, I'd argue Indy is the team I'd circle as the must-tank team. They have the new, Jim Irsay passed away, RIP Jim Irsay. We're dealing with 2 owners' deaths over the offseason with McCaskey, Virginia, and Irsay. I would argue if I'm the Irsay daughters who are now running the Colts, the only problem will be like, do you stick with Shane Steichen? I think you would, because I think Shane Steichen, there's a lot to like there. But if you go into the tank for a quarterback, you're going to fall really far behind if it's a bounce back year for Trevor, and if Cam Ward is somewhere. I'm not saying he has to be Jane Daniels, but if he's somewhere better than Caleb's rookie year, or like even kind of like what CJ Stroud had last year, then it's like, oh crap, like this could get ugly for Indy really quickly.
A competent NFL quarterback.
Yeah. And I think he's more than capable of doing that. I have high hopes for him for sure.
I agree. I think that's obviously going to be the big component to how Tennessee does. Even if they do win 6 games, if Cam Ward looks like the guy, then you don't really care how many games you win. Yeah. Actually, you'll take a high draft pick going into 2026 to build even more around him. So good stuff. That is the AFC and NFC South. Another robust episode here as we round out our previews. The preview next week will probably come later in the week. I haven't even talked with you about this, Mark, but we'll have to do something a little bit later in the week next week to get that to you all. But we got 2 more of these, and then we got our playoff prediction episode the week of
my prediction is by the next time we talk, we will see Caleb Williams play in the preseason. So God help me, God help Twitter, and stay tuned, because it's going to be, it's making me so frustrated how the media just can't get off the guy's name.
He needs to have a game like Shadur Sanders had to maybe help shut some people up.
But no, and then he'll be listed. No, because then he'll be listed 4th on the depth chart, Dan.
Yes, exactly. Good stuff. All right, well, that's us signing off for this week. We'll see you next week with the NFC and AFC West. Stay tuned.